Hey guys, welcome back to this week's pull here on Comic Relief Cast. I'm your host Jake.
And I'm your host Josh, and this is
What Are We Reading?
You guys can't see me shaking my head. This isn't What Are We Reading, this is
this week's pull.
But
on Comic Relief Cast.
Thank you for asking what we're reading, Josh. We're going to get right into it with Detective Comics 1002 by Peter Tomasi and Brad Walker. And I just got caught up on Detective Comics. I read 1000, missed 1001. Decided to do that and 1002 back-to-back today. And I got to say that it's not a memorable issue. I honestly kind of forgot about reading it after I read it, and then I'm going back going, oh yeah, I forgot about this. It didn't really stick with me. It's fine. It's pretty much typical Batman fare, though, for me.
Yeah, I feel like Tomasi's Detective Comics kind of has more of a Batman feel than Tom King's Batman, but it is, for the most part, just kind of a generic Batman.
Yeah.
You know? So it is kind of it's nice when you compare it to the Tom King Batman, the other Batman we're getting. But at the end of the day, it's just Batman.
Yeah, Batman takes a few licks in this one that makes me go, how immortal is Batman? You know, it's no real secret. You can kind of see it on the cover. This dude's got arrows sticking out of him. I'm just going, how is he cool after that, you know?
No,
I don't know.
Batman, you know?
Either way. So we're going to unveil this week's rating with, I'm going to give Detective Comics 1002 2.6 video nasties.
2.6 video nasties. I give it 2.65 video nasties.
Oh, you bastard.
All right.
Know. Moving on to Ascender, #1 by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. And I didn't read Descender. I think this is supposed to be kind of a spin-off, maybe even a continuation. I don't know. Don't crucify me for that. Didn't read Descender, just figured, hey, it's an issue 1. I'll see how I feel about an issue 1. It's something that you can jump on without any previous knowledge. So I decided to read it, and it's an interesting little read. Again, something that kind of reminds me a little bit of Saga, but it's okay. Yeah, what I really do dig, though, is Dustin Nguyen's art in this. I mean, this isn't the type of art that I'd like to see on every style of comic book, but it works for this, and I wouldn't mind seeing this style work or translated onto some other indie titles. I think it works fine enough, and it's decent. But what it basically is this witch mother who kind of reminds me of Star Wars, the Clone Wars there on Dathomir. She's like the witch mother, and she's kind of taken over. It's like Star Wars meets Saga meets some other, generic stuff, and this little girl, she doesn't want to be where she is now. She doesn't like her life. She's bored with it. She wants to kind of break out, and all the while there's like this intergalactic oppression by the Witch Mother, and then she gets this prophecy that someone will bring her down. Pretty generic stuff. I kind of expected to come across a little bit more, or expected more from Jeff Lemire, but it's fine for what it is. I'm going to give it 2.7 video nasties.
All right, I read Ghost Tree #1, written by Bobby Curnow, and Simon Gain is on the art. This kind of follows a little boy. In the beginning, it starts with this little boy and his grandpa. He's playing with himself, not pervertedly. And his grandpa goes out to the woods. The kid follows.
Watches him play with himself.
And he just tells him to watches him. Goddamn. And then they go to this tree, and he tells his son, or his grandson, to meet him there 10 years after he's dead. And then you jump to the kid being a lot older, and he's coming back home to Japan. This all deals in Japan, okay? And this deals with ghosts. It deals with dead grandpas, okay? And for the most part, this was just kind of like, it was a kind of cool idea, cool premise, but it's just kind of falls right there in the middle for me. I'm going to give it 2.65. I'm going on just 2.65.
All right, for everything. We don't need. That's not even bother
everything's
reviewing.
2.65.
It's all 2.65. Not doing anything else. All right, moving on to Dial H for Hero #2 from Wonder Comics. It is from Sam Humphries and Quinones. And I'm actually digging this series a little bit more than I thought I would. By the way, it's Joe Quinones. I'm digging this series a little bit more than I thought I would. I'm, looking at the cover of issue 1. Don't judge a book by its cover, but I obviously do. It's a comic book cover. This is a cool little self-referential, self-aware book. I mean, you get this little dial rotor phone. Is that what it's called? Rotary phone. Yeah. And it can kind of bring out a superhero out of you. And like each time you dial it, apparently you can get a new hero. And in this one, our main character gets another one while he's kind of on the run with this girl he goes to school with. He's trying to get away, and they both want to run away. And then he's kind of having some doubt about running away, but he gets a new one. It's a little bit more Gundam Wing style, while he fights this guy who had the rotary phone before, and he saw his origin. And it's basically a ripoff of Goku from Dragon Ball back when he's a kid, comes in. Even the art style is like that, or like the old 80s Dragon Ball. It was pretty funny. It was pretty cute. But like I said, this book is very referential. There's 2 sets of people after this phone, and they're like, hey, we got to go just take this rotary phone to Superman because he'll know what to do with it. And so they're kind of on a journey to go get the phone to Superman, while 2 sets of people are after the phone because, they got this taste of power and they want it. But it's an interesting little book, and it's actually a little bit more adult-oriented than I would have thought initially, especially by looking at the art. So I'm going to give this book 3.2 video nasties.
Nice. I read Action Comics 1010. This is part 4 of the Leviathan Rising, which is going to end up being an event for DC in the summer. This one just kind of follows Superman and Lois going undercover, which if you read the last issue, you kind of know what's going on. They actually reference something that happened before with their undercover, the agents that they go undercover as for Spiral, I think that's what it was called. I always have a hard time saying it because it spells it differently. And it's just them. It's kind of like a Detective Comics this week. It's kind of like a forgettable issue, but you got Steve Epting on the art, and it's great. Brian Michael Bendis is doing a pretty good job on Action Comics, better than when he is on Superman. I'm going to give this one 2.8.
2.8. All right. Nasty. And then we both read a book from Aftershock Comics called The Replacer #1. And actually, that might just be its own thing. The writer is Zach Thompson, and the artist is Arjuna Susini. This is kind of a cool book. It's a big 64-page graphic novella is what they're calling it. The cover actually looks like an old VHS tape. And when we were reading the synopsis, it was actually somewhat based on a true story by the writer, somewhat of an autobiography, obviously exaggerated, but it's a horror book, right? And this kid, his dad falls victim to a stroke, and it makes him ill. And then the little boy kind of thinks that his dad didn't really fall victim to a stroke. What happened was a demon took over his body, and all the outward signs appear like a stroke, but only he can kind of see the demon, who's kind of playing his dad like a marionette at times. It sounds a little ridiculous, and it is a little ridiculous, but it's actually a really intriguing book, and it takes place in the 90s, so it's all in 1996, so I can kind of identify with the young kid, because I would have been around his age in 96, and I don't know, I actually really ended up enjoying this book. What about you, Josh?
I really liked it. I'm glad that I ordered it, and I'm getting a copy. But because I like books that kind of dig into the psyches of characters, and this has kind of a horror-esque feel to it, but at the same time, it's Zach Thompson does a really good job of kind of digging into the eyes of a kid, the way a kid views these certain situations. And then when you start reading it, you start thinking maybe you didn't have a close member of your family, and maybe they didn't have the same thing going on. But you think about other members or people that you've seen when you're growing up, and the way that you kind of looked at them during these kind of crises. And I thought that was really cool. It's a really cool premise. I think that it's kind of like an untapped story that a version of a story that you've ever read before.
Yeah,
they really never kind of there's not a whole lot of writers that actually tackled this kind of way, tackled this in this kind of way.
Yeah, and in movie form, they kind of give you references to what this book is kind of taking from. In the background, you'll see the kid watching The Exorcist or The Shining, stuff like that. What I really liked about this book, too, is the way Zach Thompson uses the kid as this kind of unreliable narrator, because about halfway through, you start going, maybe the kid's the one who's all fucked up. It's not his dad who's actually possessed by a demon. Maybe the kid's actually just seeing stuff, and maybe there's something actually wrong with him. And I like when you kind of throw that element in the mix, because then it really does create a little bit more intrigue and mystery to the book. But I really enjoyed this book. I think the one thing I wasn't all that satisfied with was just the ending, the way it all wrapped up. I liked it, but I kind of want more answers. I wanted a little bit more of an explanation for one or two things. But other than that, I thought this was a great read. I'm going to give this one 3.75 video nasties.
I'm at 3.85 video nasties.
All right, moving on to Justice League Dark #10 by James Tynion and Martinos Bueno. And this is just, again, if you guys have been reading Justice League Dark, which if you aren't, you probably should. I think this is a really cool series so far. But, it's all about the gods of order, or the lords of order, like Dr. Fate and kind of his ilk. And they're basically kind of scheming on what to do, how to defeat the other kind. And what you realize is this book has kind of been split up now into 3 parts. What's going on with Zatanna, what's going on with Zatanna and Wonder Woman, what's going on with Bobo and his team, and then what's going on with Cersei, and so all those 3 things are kind of being told at the same time. Really solid book, really solid entry. I think the next issue is going to be one hell of a bang up issue. I'm going to give Justice League Dark #10 3.0 Video Nasties.
Nice. I read Dick Tracy Forever, issue 1 it's written and actually drawn by Oming. Did I say his name right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for starters, when you first look at this, Oming was made to, his art style is perfect for Dick Tracy.
Looks really good on that cover.
It definitely feels that retro, old school Dick Tracy feel to it. This is actually split into 3 stories. They all kind of woven together in a way, but there's 3 separate stories. Only one of them is actually continuing to the next, because this is a miniseries of I think 4 issues. It was really good. If you like Dick Tracy, this is definitely the book for you, because he doesn't really go too far off of what we know of Dick Tracy. It's not like a huge changing of the character. It just feels like a classic Dick Tracy
Does it
book.
feel like Alec Baldwin as Dick Tracy?
No, it does not feel like Alec Baldwin, but you do feel a sense of Al Pacino.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed it. It's probably not good. It's definitely not something for me. It's something more for the Dick Tracy fans. But as someone who isn't a massive Dick Tracy fan, I will say that this was still good. I'm going to give it 3 Video Nasties.
All right. Moving on to Criminal, issue 4 by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Now, this series has been kind of an anthology with loose ties to each issue. This one takes a break because the last 2 issues were all about Hal, the artist, and then his kind of squire or ward, if you want to call it that, his apprentice maybe. So this takes to a different character, and he's this kid who's kind of all strung out on speed, and he's kind of just going through life, and he's a criminal. He's doing things. You don't really get a sense of what he's doing. What I will say about this issue, though, is that it does feel like the shortest issue of Criminal from this new series so far, and that was kind of odd. I feel like the last few issues have been kind of long, and they're ones that you kind of really get to sit in with, and it almost feels like a movie. This one, for some reason, feels shorter than the others, and I can't tell why. And I also, because I don't have enough time, you guys can feel free to correct me in the comments, but I think this actually might be the grown-up son of the kid of the first issue, and his dad was the criminal. I might be wrong on that. I'd have to go back and look. I just didn't have time today, but it was enjoyable, but it's probably my least favorite of the new Criminal series so far, with that 2.85 Video Nasties.
I read Electric Black #1. It's by Scout Comics. The writer is Joseph Schmalk, and the artist is Rich Hudale. Yeah. And this is kind of like a horror-based comic that feels like Tales of the Crypt. You follow this character that you don't really know too much about, but he does kind of have this ghoul look to him, and he runs an antique shop that can apparently travel from different space and time. But it kind of breaks down to these different horror stories, and he's telling these as if he's the Crypt Keeper kind of deal. If you like horror-based comics and you like stuff that old school comics like Tales of the Crypt, this definitely has that flair for you. It does have different artists and different stories that are by that he's telling. There are by different writers and artists and stuff, and it's pretty cool. If you like those kind of old new horror books from the 70s, this is up your alley. I suggest going ahead and picking it up. I'm going to give this one a 2.8 Video Nasties.
All right, so basically you've been following all my grades. I just want you to know that.
Have I?
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
Pretty much. All right, and the last issue we're going to go over is Heroes in Crisis #8 from Tom King and Mitch Gerads, and this is kind of a hot button topic with the comic book fans. It's there are a lot of people talking shit about this book. They don't like it. They don't like what's going on with Wally West. They don't like what Tom King is doing. Blah blah blah. And I can't fault them. I can't say that they're wrong, and I can't say that I disagree either, because we are one issue away from wrapping all of this up, and this issue is finally told from the perspective of Wally West. I feel like I said 2 or 3 issues probably could have been cut off from this book, made it about 5 or 6 issues, and it could have been a tighter story. But this one's basically all told from the point of view of Wally West, and I gotta say, I was looking forward to this. I'm going good. I want some answers. I want to know what happened, and I'm completely dissatisfied with this explanation.
It does seem a little random. It seems too easy. It seems way too easy of an ending.
Well, actually, my problem is that it seems so damn convoluted. It seems so ridiculously overcomplicated that I kind of had a hard time following it. And by the time I kind of was able to follow along, I was just like, you know what, I just want to finish this.
See, to me, it just felt like it was just a little too simple.
It also feels like a cop-out.
Yeah, like a cop-out. It's simple. And also, I mean, we still have one more issue left, so I don't know if this is exactly what's gonna like happen, because it'd be kind of weird, because this definitely does feel like it should have ended just right here almost, with this like one little piece of information missing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, it just I don't know, it's leaving a weird taste in my mouth for the most part.
I didn't like this issue at all. I was really hoping for something a little bit more. Batman has completely lost my favor. Tom King has lost my favor on Batman, but Heroes in Crisis, I've been back and forth. I'm like, okay, King, wasn't a fan of this issue. Really like this next issue, so I was kind of going back and forth. I gotta say, I think now that we're 8 issues in, I think for the majority, I've liked fewer issues than I've disliked. And this, I don't know. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but Wally's explanation for what happened at Sanctuary, you say it's simple. I can see in concept how it's simple, but the explanation is so overly complicated and so damn convoluted that I probably should reread this, but I don't want to, because it was unsatisfactory.
I just feel like it was just something not an original. It just felt very like it was a cop out. That's all it was.
Yeah. So with that, what would you grade this book?
I would probably grade it 2.
A 2?
Yeah, 2 video nasties.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm at 2.4 video nasties, but that's also because I think a lot of it's just because I really do like Mitch Gerads' art in this book, and I think it's drawn well.
So one thing that's really good about this is a lot of Wally, Mitch Gerads drawing Wally. That's definitely the best thing about the book.
Yeah, it's well illustrated. But other than that, man, Tom King, I even could really pinpoint some of the very spoon-fed, quote-unquote, metaphor, symbolism stuff in here. And with that, it's just, it doesn't work. But anyways, guys, unfortunately, that's the note we're going to end it on. We really hope that you liked this video so far. Let us know how you felt about these comics in the comment section below. Let's have that conversation. Hit that like button if you like this video. Feel free to hit that down button if you're all about Heroes in Crisis and you feel angry at us for not liking it. We do apologize. We just have to be honest. Share this with your comic reading friends. And of course, guys, we're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. So help us hit it by subscribing to the channel. And you'll get new early reviews for comic books every week. Thank you and take care.
It's called What Are We Reading? Not This Week's Pool, just so you know.